I'm Jermaine Weldon. I'm chair of the North Carolina Association of CPA Financial Planning Networking Group. And I want to thank you for joining us today on long-term care solution and trends with certified financial planner Jenny Martella. If you've tuned into our programs before, you know that our goal is to provide objective financial planning information to help you, your family, your clients, your neighbors, help you make better financial decisions. And today we have a hot topic with Jenny Martella because so many of us are concerned about long-term care issues. Now, Jenny has a panel of experts with her today, and I'm going to let her introduce them. But I can tell you a little bit about Jenny, and I'm going to tell you some personal things about her. Because she is a section hiker on the AT, and she's also an avid lap swimmer. And those are two of my favorite activities. And this past weekend, she hiked the AT over at Fontana Dam, which I'm very jealous about that she did because I didn't get to do it. So she's a very active person, but she's a known speaker on financial planning issues, giving talks on this very topic, long-term care, to national audiences, including the National Association of Personal Financial Advisors, which many of you know is called NACPA. And in fact, that's where I first saw Jenny give this very same talk with a panel that I saw her at some other conferences. But aside from the long-term care issue that affects all of us and all of our communities, Jenny is also known with female investors and their families to help them grow their wealth and help safeguard it for the future. She has a particular passion for helping women and connecting with her clients and empowering them to feel confident in the process. Jenny's practice is in Charlotte. She's a principal and a wealth manager with Madura Wealth. So all that being said, I am going to introduce Jenny, and she's going to introduce her panel. And my only housekeeping note is if you put your questions in the chat, Jenny is going to attempt to answer that throughout the program, and then any last questions at the very end. So, Jenny, it's your program.
Thanks so much, Jermaine. This is my favorite topic, as you have introduced me so well. I am with Modera Wealth Management, as Jermaine introduced me, and we are one of the largest fee-only advisory firms, and that's a very important distinction because that's how we become members of NACPA. And I'm a big proponent of NACPA in the fee-only space because that means we don't sell any financial products, and our advice is always objective and transparent for that reason. But we're a rare breed, so I stick up for us NACPA people. And with that in mind, I want to talk a little bit about why I became passionate about this subject, the senior care space. And it's really because it hit home for me. And my parents, as they were aging, I sat down with them and said, let's make a plan around your care and what's going to happen as you get older, because mom had a minor stroke, and I was flat out told them I'm a terrible caregiver. I just want to be straight up that if you're assuming I'm going to be in this role, that's not a good assumption. So let's talk about your plan. And they both hid from the plan. They didn't want to make a plan. And my dad said they're going to have to carry me out of here on a stretcher. I'm not going anywhere, if that's what you mean. I'm not going to one of those places. And so I said, well, then who's going to take care of mom? Dad, are you going to do that? And mom, what do you think of that? And she said, no, that's a terrible idea. He doesn't do this well at all. I don't trust him. So dad said, well, my plan is to die in my sleep. And dad got his wish. He got lucky with that one. But that left mom, who's a very social person. And I saw her kind of like a flower wilting as soon as he died. And I knew she needed a community, which of course I had been pushing all along, some kind of a plan. And mom entered a community. Mom entered a continuing care facility. She's now 85. And my mom is as young and vibrant as ever. And I can't wait to share this kind of news with anyone who will listen. Is when mom made a plan, she got better. And she knows what will happen in her older years. And she's got friends who will help get her there. And she isn't completely reliant on me because I'm a financial person. I'm good with the money stuff, but I'm just terrible at nursing and caregiving. So anyway, that is how I got passionate about this. And then I started making my way around town to meet the people in this space so I could learn more about it. And so that's how I met the people in our panel today, all of whom are so useful in shedding light on all the options available for seniors. And that means people like us who are going to age eventually, and people we already know who in our lives, including our clients, who are becoming elders. So the first speaker is Laura O'Day. And I've known Laura for a very long time. I call her like the real estate agent for finding senior uh, homes and spaces, including. So she's with a company that she founded, Assisted Living Locators here in Charlotte. But she also will help people with the continuing care space and knowing which model does what some of the money stuff is about, because as we know, they're all different with the money stuff, and what the vibe is in some of these places. She even knows that. So she has just been really, really helpful to me in this space and getting to know it. And then we have Lacy Caiazza. She is the director of sales and marketing for the Barclay at South Park. And that's the fun part of our discussion because Lacy discovered after a 20-year career in senior living and senior care that the fun part is the community part. Her place, the Barclay, is a senior community that's a continuing care retirement community. It's a newer kind of model on the money side, which is a non-entry fee model. It is a rental model, and she's going to tell you more about that. But on top of that, it is absolutely gorgeous. I've been over there. I'm ready to move in. That's what happens to me when I go in these places. Um, so then we've got Barbara Moore, who I just came upon this group a short while ago at Laura's urging to understand what care management is all about. And I called Barbara, who works as a certified nurse care manager at Caregiving Corner. That's the name of her company. Um, she and her company are the quarterback for us families trying to find our way in this world. And they provide so many services, really to serve the families of older people, but the older people themselves. And I'm going to kind of list out some of these things. Includes working with clients with complex medical needs, healthcare advocacy, which we all need in our health system that's becoming kind of a disaster for us families trying to find our way around and get our help that we need. Healthcare guardianship, and I think a lot of us know what that is, but she might shed some more light on that, and healthcare power of attorney services. So that's a lot that they do. So I'm so pleased to get to know Barbara and her firm because I'll tell you, when my mom has another surgery, I think that might be the group that I call to bring a real nurse in and not me, because as we've talked about, I'm terrible at this stuff. So anyway, we're going to start with, this is now a panel discussion. We have no PowerPoint. So I'm going to just be asking these folks questions and letting them answer so we can learn more about this space and how we can do better for the elders that we know. And then again, you all can ask questions in the chat. We have a question around Barbara's company, but Barbara, your company is called the Caregiving Corner, right? And by the way, everyone, all of our panelists are here in Charlotte because that's where I reside. So that's what I know. Um, so Barbara, question for you first. Your company, when I heard you present before, or not you, but the person who founded your company, talks about a caregiving plan as part of an essential three-legged stool, meaning we need to do an estate plan, everybody out there, all of us listening, an estate plan, a financial plan. But the third leg of this stool that shouldn't be neglected is a caregiving plan, as a three-legged stool approach to aging. Why is it so important for seniors and their families to institute a caregiving plan?
Thank you. Yes. Thanks everyone for being here and thanks for having me. The way I look at caregiving plan, I tend to call it a long-term care plan. So it's looking at the long-term care needs of the client, the wishes of the client, the support and the resources for the client. So diving in first to understand what the healthcare needs are. Does this person understand their diagnoses? Do they understand their comorbidities? What else is going on that is affecting them health-wise? Who are their physicians that they see? Do they have a good support of doctors that they're seeing? Is that managed well? Are they attending their appointments? Is their medication managed? That helps us paint a picture of a prognosis, and we can make better decisions to continue to guide them because we understand, hey, they're dealing with Parkinson's, they're dealing with congestive heart failure or kidney disease or dementia. It helps us begin to kind of put together a better way to look at a holistic approach to their care management. We then move on to their wishes, not their daughter's wishes, not their kids' wishes, not their husband's wishes, but the actual client sitting down and talking. What are your wishes? Do you want to stay home? Do you want to move to California? Do you want to sell your house and buy 3 rental properties and travel the world? Do you want to live in an over 55 community locally? Do you plan to go to the beach? Do you want to move to assisted living? Do you want to just wait till everything falls apart and go into a nursing home? Do you want to bring folks in your house? Do you not? So we kind of help them have those conversations because until you really sit down and dive into what that looks like, oh, okay, you want to move to California? Who's in California? And kind of help them think that through a little bit more, put a pen to paper and really kind of guide that plan. And then once we've established their wishes, we oftentimes have to dive into that budget piece. We're assuming or hoping that the long-term paperwork has been put together as far as their documents, that they've met with an elder care attorney, that they have everything in place as far as financial POA and healthcare POA, as well as advanced directives. If not, we help guide them on that. Then we make sure they've met with a financial planner. What's your budget? What are your assets? What can you do here? Long-term, do you have long-term care insurance? What does long-term care insurance cover? We can read into that and kind of help them understand that piece. Also looking at, not only the financial resources, but the support resources. So who are your family? Who are your emergency contacts? Are they relying on neighbor Walter, who's going to come over and help everything? What happens to neighbor Walter? Just had that happen yesterday. Also looking at things like community support, do they understand what's out there as far as resources for support, caregiver support groups, things at the local YMCA and the senior centers, meals that can come into the home, all the different supports that we can kind of see, oh, are you using these? Are you aware of these? I think once we get that whole big picture of their needs, their wishes, and their resources, we can develop that caregiving plan for them. And the risk to take it a step further, the risk to not doing that is chaos. It's crisis, it's health implications. It's instead of having a good plan, you're trying to just jump in and try to fix something really, messy and in an urgent situation, which typically doesn't go well. It can be very costly. You're talking massive caregiver stress. You're talking massive family discord, potentially, because assumptions have been made that daughter wants to be the bedside nurse when daughter doesn't want to, or daughter is not moving to come take care of mom or dad. So we help initiate those conversations and typically bring in the family as well with their permission. So, hey, do you mind if I reach out to your daughter and get her perspective? Or, hey, let's all get on a Zoom call or a conference call and talk about this together and make sure we have your family on board as well.
Yeah, thanks for that. We all want to avoid the chaos, don't we? I think everybody wants to try to predict what's going to happen to them
Right.
and be in denial of a possible terrible thing happening. When my mom had a minor stroke, I said that was the shot across the bow. We were lucky that it was something minor and could work with it. But the next time I told my parents, what if it's major? What are we going to do then?
Mhm.
And so I think just having a discussion, starting with a family discussion about what what does somebody want? And then if they want to age in their home, do they know what that's about? Do they know how they're going to go about it and what the risks are and the cost? Right, Barbara?
Yeah. We often help folks if aging in place is what they want to do. We work with third party with other companies typically to offer them someone that can come in and assess their home. So really develop a plan for, are your entryways safe? Are your showers safe? Are your bathrooms safe? Are your kitchens safe? What do your doors look like? If they're potentially going to need a wheelchair, are they going to be able to move around? Looking at rugs and lamps and cords, and we provide a complete holistic assessment safety of the home, and then typically we'll refer out to say, hey, you need to get this bathroom redone. This is a good investment. Sometimes folks, they find out they need $200,000 worth of renovations to live in their home, and that's cost prohibitive to stay at home. So then that would help them decide, ooh, downsizing sounds, better. I should probably move to a one-story, condo, and that can help guide some of that planning process.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's really helpful, Barbara.
yeah, the safety piece is super significant. And we're all guilty of thinking we can do more than we can. And sometimes it takes someone from the outside saying, you have Parkinson's. You are going to eventually need more care, and you are not going to move the same way you move now. And I know it's hard for you to see that, but these stairs are going to be a huge problem for you.
Sounds
And
like me and my Appalachian Trail adventures. I'm guilty of thinking I could do more than I can.
right,
But,
certainly, certainly.
right. But I love talking in your concepts around home care because I personally hear that from all my clients. And of course, this is what I heard from my dad. I just want to stay here and age in place. So I think having a plan around that it sounds like it's really important because what I hear from folks is it's not as easy as you think to find those caregivers. Maybe through your company, it's easier, but find somebody who's consistent, who shows up, because if they don't show up, what then? What if the person doesn't get along with mom or mom's cranky and she doesn't get along with anybody? So we hear a lot of things around this. I'm getting a question from the chat. What age should we think about this caregiving plan and getting serious about that?
Every situation's different, but the younger the better. I mean, I
Okay,
think
that's a good answer.
I think having these conversations close to retirement is really important. So long before you think about needing the care, it's going ahead and having those conversations while things are really good and while you're healthy and you're doing great, because the goal is to live your best life, to live your most independent, happy, healthy life. And those conversations are easier had when things you can't even imagine not being healthy. But you could say, hey, if this happens, this is kind of what I want. So the
Yeah, and
younger,
I would also add that what I see with my clients a lot of times, the husband is the primary around the money stuff, and the wife doesn't know much about it. So I think, or some of them are do-it-yourselfers like my dad, who was so determined to do it himself until he wasn't capable anymore. And then when do we take away those car keys and everything? And if anybody in the audience wants my article about that topic, I wrote it about my dad's story and how was the best investor I knew. He inspired me until he wasn't. And he started making mistakes around the money, but wasn't including my mom. And so when dad dies, what does mom know? How is she supposed to function? Or how
Mhm.
does he function when he's not very capable? And I also looked at over his tax returns. I think everybody in the audience will be interested in that, but and the tax returns were riddled with mistakes that my dad had been making. So, there's the money part too that we have to keep an eye on. And I did write an article about that, about my experience with my dad. So if anybody wants that. Um, yeah, car keys away from dad around
Huge
money,
topic.
and it's a very sensitive subject, right? This is a person who's very empowered and proud and independent. So, but I think it's just as important to be talking about money with these folks too, and how they're going to manage that. Just
I
talking.
think what we see oftentimes, I think all of us on this panel, is that for a lot of seniors, that loss seems like their loss of independence.
Mhm.
Those car keys
Yes,
not
the
being
car keys
available
and the
or not.
money keys, right?
Right. Yeah.
Right.
But the driving is one of those
Mhm.
things that I think really is hard for them to accept. And I think our goal always, the three professionals that are on this panel with Jenny, is to empower seniors to
Yes.
make decisions for themselves, but help them make informed decisions that
Mhm.
will help them move forward as they're transitioning through this aging process. So,
I love that. Well,
yeah.
Laura, my next question is for you anyway. In your experience working with families looking for senior communities, what happens when somebody needs community care at the last minute? What's at stake and what happens?
Yeah, well, Barbara hit on this, that oftentimes we're dealing with the children because something has happened. And that chaos you referred to, Barbara, is what we're thrown into, because suddenly the children are thrust into this decision-making role on behalf of a parent who has had, a fall and broken a hip, or had some other serious, a stroke, um, situation that they just can't go back home and live alone any longer. And so children oftentimes don't know the first place to turn. So, that's where we generally are coming in at, and in a lot of situations, the ones where people are actually planning ahead and thinking ahead, where they can enjoy the beautiful amenities like the Barclay where Lacy is. Those are the fun ones to work with. But and what's at stake is that if you don't plan ahead and something does happen, then oftentimes your options are going to be more limited. If you had made that decision earlier to move to a senior community, once you're there, the senior community will work with you to help you maintain your independence and be able to, bring in resources to assist you in that setting. But you may not now be able to move to an independent living community and function there because something has happened. So that's one of the things we really try to educate seniors about is we want to help you maintain your independence. We want to help you be able to make decisions for yourself. By not making a decision, you kind of are making a decision to give other people that right to make decisions for you. So by making your own decisions now while you can, you are maintaining control. And, that's what I think is important to most seniors, is feeling like they're still in control of their own lives. So helping them understand that making these decisions now will help them maintain control. And, to the last point with your question, what I try to talk with seniors about is, right now we're operating in plan A. Where you are today is our plan A. And we all hope and wish we could stay right where we are today. But the chances that something will change down the road as we age, that will mean that we have to readjust our plan, it's going to happen. We all know that. To the
Everybody's getting
CPA,
old, Laura. We can't deny it, I suppose.
no, just like the CPAs on this call, the two things we know for sure in life are death and taxes. Those are the two things we know are going to happen. So, so what I try to do is gently move them towards the idea of, all right, so we're in plan A now. Let's come up with what plan B looks like. And to Barbara's point, asking them questions. What does that look like to you? What is it you want? And then if what they want is realistic, helping them find the resources. And as you said, to, stay in their home and age safely there, great. If that really isn't realistic, that's where we then have to talk about what's not realistic about that plan, what could be part of that plan that just is not going to work well, and look at other options. So Again, I think it comes down to giving them options, helping them understand the reality sometimes in the aging process that all of us don't want to accept. But talking to them about making decisions that allow you to maintain as much control about your future as you possibly can, and just
Control is the key
empowering them
word.
to do that.
Right. Okay. And maybe this is a question for both Lacy and Laura. We often hear from our seniors, those senior communities, senior homes aren't for me. I'll just grow old faster in those kinds of places. And so I'll never leave my house is what we most
Yeah.
commonly hear. What are some of the misconceptions surrounding community living?
I will let Lacy speak to the great things in a community like hers, but I will just tell you, and I say this to clients all the time, baby boomers have totally changed the way people age in this country now and what they want when they're aging. And it's not your grandmother's old nursing home anymore that we're talking about when you make a change like this. So the baby boomer generation has definitely driven a different way to age. And I'll let Lacy talk a little bit about what that looks like.
Thank you. Yeah, this is honestly my favorite question. I've joked with Jenny before. My favorite client that comes in through the door says, is sitting there with their arms crossed and their child brought them, and they're really not all that interested in hearing what I have to say or taking a look around. And they are my favorite because usually by the end of a first or second visit, you kind of see this shift in them, because they have that kind of old-timey perception as to the old folks' home, the nursing home.
Mhm.
And I'll joke with people all the time that word nursing home, it just grates on me because that's what people envision. And there has certainly been a shift in this. It has taken the medical feel out of this and made it more of a hospitality feel. I mean, it's really become like a hospitality industry.
Your community is like a cruise ship on land. I mean, it's gorgeous.
It's a country club is what it is. Come on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. So it's not something to be feared, but most people coming in who have that mentality have had some sort of experience or witnessed, family members, and typically it's from long ago. Although, even in the past 10 years, the industry has shifted tremendously. So I love these conversations. It usually is just there's a level of ignorance and just not knowing and not educating themselves as to what this is. And the more that they open themselves to just having the conversation, the easier it is to really start to envision, like, oh, this isn't so bad after all. It really is actually a pretty glamorous lifestyle in a lot of respects.
Well, so and the other thing we're going to talk more about community living, I hope. This is maybe getting to your question anyway, Lacy, which is let's describe the benefits of independent living, which is the precursor. So when we go into continuing care, the first level is independent living, or there's some standalone independent living situations without the higher levels of care. Your model has those things. But let's talk about the benefits of this community living and independent care. What do you see with your residents with these friendships, and what does it do for them?
Yeah. So, when it comes to independent living, I think that's the easiest step in the process for somebody to look past. I live independently now. I live in my home. And what's the difference? If I'm living independently at home, my house is paid for, why would I take this step to go into an independent living? And usually, again, a misconception, not understanding differences between what is independent living, what is assisted living, what does memory care look like, and what is a skilled nursing. And to different communities, it can look different, depending on where you're looking. But in terms of the benefits, independent living is not like you're just renting an apartment somewhere. It is not just like you're living at home. There are a lot of different benefits. I'll get to my favorite, which is community, friendships, and things in just a second. But just the ease of lifestyle. It's taking away the overall maintenance that you have in your home and those headaches that come about. It's taking away the complexity of the financial piece and making sure you paid this bill and that bill and whatever. It's really meant to be an all-encompassing, all-inclusive rate that you pay, that includes the vast majority of your monthly living expenses. It offers peace of mind. There's, 24-hour staff in these communities. There's, in our community specifically, emergency pull cords in the bedrooms and in the bathrooms. They've all been upfitted for, the aging population with widened doorways, zero entry showers, things like that. So you aren't having to make those modifications in the home. And as it relates to community and friendships, that to me is just does not hold enough weight in the conversation. It is why I am super passionate about what I do, is because I've seen how people really truly live. Jenny, how you said about your mom kind of living her best life right now. You'd find it hard pressed to be bored. You'd find it hard pressed to not have a friend to have a meal with. Something as simple as going down to get your mail. You're going to see people. Isolation. We all know. If you didn't know, you found out during COVID how damaging isolation is. And so that's a really important piece of the puzzle. I had a gentleman who lived here with his wife, and after he lived here mainly, he said, for his wife, who was the social being. She was the social butterfly. They lived here for a period of time. She passed away. Unfortunately, she became very ill, passed away suddenly. And he found himself not wanting to live in the apartment that they lived in. This was her idea. He didn't think he wanted to be here anymore. And so he broke all of our hearts when he gave us a 30-day notice and moved to a regular apartment complex down the road, thinking I'm going to have the same sort of, ease of lifestyle there. He wasn't there 6 months before he called me and he said, I made a terrible mistake. I miss my people. I miss my community. I'm in the gym and everybody's a millennial, and I don't have anybody to have a drink with at the bar, and I'm just not having the same experience that I had there, and I miss it. And he came back within 7 months. He was right back here. So it really does a whole lot of things for somebody.
Great. Well, I'm trying to be busy answering a few questions here. And I mean, we commented a little bit about my mom and how happy she is now. What's really funny is my mom, I've just visited her last night. And of course, we hit the bar because that's where mom has all the action happening here. And my mom has so many friends that just keep coming up to her, and she is having the time of her life. I mean, it's like, and some may relate to this too. When my dad was on the decline, he became more reclusive, and he would sit at his computer all day and not want to go out. And that was dragging my mom down. So I swear this has been just a whole nother chapter for her, where she has more vitality and is younger than ever at age 85. So that's quite a bit. That's why I'm so passionate about all this. Well, thanks for sharing that, Lacy. And somebody was asking, and I'll put this in the chat, about affordability and how people enter these facilities, and how many also long-term care insurance was coming up. So affordability is a question, and that's where my team comes in, because we're the money people. We're going to do a plan around it. I don't know how people do it without a certified financial planner by their side. to do these calculations and understand, is it going to work? What we see in most cases that people want to sell their home anyway, and they use that to pay the entry fee to go into these facilities that require an entry fee. But again, Lacy's community doesn't require an entry fee, and that's a key component because in my studies around this with other advisors too, at other firms, to take money and throw it at this big entry fee a lot of times isn't the best solution for clients. We can have more flexibility without having this, large entry. We're talking about $500,000 and more sometimes for these entry fees now. So when I threw it up against the higher per month rental model that, Lacy, you're going to charge more per month than my mother's facility. But even with that component increased, having this entry fee pulled out of investment accounts and not cooking for them and earning more money leaves less for family members who might inherit. It leaves less flexibility. And believe me, I don't sell Lacy's model, but I just happen to be really interested in it because of that flexibility that it offers. So if that helps a few people. Now, as far as long-term care insurance, the question was how many coming into these facilities have that piece underway. And I think the implication might be, is it something we recommend for people? And in my space, we don't recommend it very often anymore, only because the older policies are good, but the new ones tend to be very expensive, unreliable as far as the annual charges on those things. They can increase by 30 to 50% even in 1 year. So then you've cooked in 10 years of this long-term care premium, and then you find it goes up quite a bit. But for those that have it, great, let's use it. But again, that's why it's good to have a financial person by your side to do the modeling for you on, how's the long-term care going to work, as far as the higher levels of care. That's the scary part.
Yeah. And Jenny, I think probably a lot of your clients, are financially well off.
Yes, they are.
And, have the resources to pay privately for the most part for the care that they're going to need down the road. My biggest challenge in working with clients is that oftentimes we have families that, mom and dad have worked hard all their lives. They, have maybe a small 401k plan or a small pension that they're getting, but primarily it's Social Security that they're living on. And when they reach a point where they need these care levels, finding affordable care out there is a major challenge. And frankly, I think it's one of the biggest challenges our country is going to face as we're seeing these baby boomers age up and more people are needing advanced care and potentially can't afford to pay privately for it. So, that is a big challenge. We definitely try to work with families to figure out where the more affordable options would be, looking at, other kinds of care models if we possibly can. But a lot of times there just aren't good answers that we can give a family on how to provide care for a loved one. And, our dynamic in this country has changed so much because oftentimes children don't live near a parent anymore. They've moved away. And Barbara, I'm sure that's where your company comes in often with families that don't have either children at all or children that live nearby, to be that patient advocate for them and to do some of those things that your company can do for them. So, it is a challenge. And to your point, Jenny, long-term care insurance is not widely available or used by the public, because those are the first questions we ask when meeting with the family that might have limited resources are, do you have a long-term care policy? Were you a veteran during wartime? Because there are some benefits available through the VA. If you're a spouse that has a spouse with Alzheimer's and you want to remain in the home, but you can't pay privately for the care your spouse needs to move somewhere else, reverse mortgages and other things that could be utilized to perhaps create cash flow. Life insurance policies that perhaps could be sold under a viatical or life settlement type arrangement to create cash to help pay for these care costs. So that is, an issue for a lot of folks out there and families that just don't have the resources to pay privately. Average cost of assisted living right now here in the Charlotte area, and I think nationally it's probably very close as well, is going to be somewhere around $5,000 a month. When you're talking about memory care costs, that can range anywhere from $7,500 up to $12,000 or $13,000 per month. And when you get into long-term skilled level care, that can be anywhere from about 13,000 to 18, 19,000 per month.
They're just staggering numbers, right?
Yeah. And if you do want to remain in your home and you want to bring in full-time caregiving, when you hit that mark where you need somebody there 24 hours a day, that can be $20,000 a month to bring someone in to provide care. So, it is a
Crazy.
costly.
So 20,000 for a caregiver. So it definitely is more expensive having somebody come into your home. And
yes, it can be. And again, the reliability issue that, is it going to be the same person coming in? Is it going to be a constant changing group of caregivers coming in? What happens if somebody doesn't show up when you're supposed to for their shift? All of those kinds of things. So, yeah. A lot of considerations.
Wow. It's a wow. Well, and a lot of people expressing frustration here in the chat about the government not covering a lot of this. And so what I will say is Medicare will cover 100 days of the highest level of care, and that's it. But we see a lot of people going in and out. And I think the more frequent user of skilled nursing is going to be a shorter term user going in and out for rehab and stuff like that. But Laura, would you then speak to the new family care home model? Because I think that this came from California, I feel like where I was, where we had these family care situations for this highest level of care. And I loved it because it was less expensive is what I remember.
Well, that, started on the West Coast and has kind of moved across the country. Now we are seeing a lot of new family care homes here in the North Carolina market developing. And what these are simply a house in a regular neighborhood that the owner purchases. They upfit it to accommodate seniors, as we were talking about earlier, widening doorways, taking out bathtubs and putting in zero entry roll-in showers, those sorts of things. They are licensed through the state of North Carolina as an assisted living or other memory care community would be, but they're only licensed for 6 residents maximum. So the thought process is just that it is a more home-like feel. You're living in an actual house in a neighborhood. Generally, what we find in that marketplace is that during the day, there are 2 caregivers on duty and you have just 6 residents. So the caregiver to resident ratio is better. And at night, then it goes down to 1 caregiver because obviously people are sleeping. And a lot of the family care homes are focused on dementia care specifically because that's become a real need as that disease has grown. So they have caregivers who are specifically trained in how to deal with dementia, Alzheimer's, all the different types of diseases that you do need special training to know how to react with people who have those diseases. So it is a whole different model that we find a lot of families aren't even aware of. And it can be a better choice for some folks to go to a smaller setting that does feel more like home. And for a lot of the family members, that feels better than putting them, a loved one someplace that feels a little more institutional. So it is a whole new model that's kind of moved into the Carolinas here, and we're seeing a lot of those new homes springing up.
Excellent.
Barbara, I don't know,
do
you have much experience with those?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think it's a regulation that allowed that recent regulation.
Yeah. So.
Okay, some more questions coming in the chat about maybe these are for you, Lacy, getting into continuing care retirement facilities. There's wait lists, right? And advice around when to get on a wait list and because you got to walk in there with all of your faculties intact, right? You can't walk in needing some care.
Yeah, in a lot of cases, it depends on the community itself and how they can do a direct admission into higher levels of care if that comes about. But to the short answer of when is the right time to get on a wait list, if you're already thinking, should I, then the answer probably is yes. It could vary depending on where you are. I will tell you in Charlotte, it is very much a wait list culture. They are these communities, the various CCRC or continuing care communities that surround us have been around for decades, and then in turn just continuously, build these lists where you can see many of them, waiting 2, 3, 5+ years to get in, depending on what it is that you are looking for. And so I highly recommend folks to put their name on a list. There's no harm. It's very little down for all those that are right here in Charlotte that I'm speaking of. It's $1,000 down. Most are refundable if you don't see yourself going there at some point in time. But at the very least, it's giving you a number. And when you do not do that, and you wait, and then again, then we're talking with Barbara about the crisis modes and the chaos and things like that. If you are not already on a list somewhere, your options certainly can be less glamorous. But I will tell you, it is not just a matter of making a plan, putting yourself on a list. And I've been trying to educate the clients that I work with about this. It's not just, I talked to somebody at the Barclay. I love the Barclay. That's where I know I want to be. I have my $1,000 down there, and then I'm going to sit in my home and I'm going to wait until something happens. You really have to then put a plan in place. I hope to make this move in about 3 years. Throughout that 3 years, you should be engaging with that community on a very regular basis, understanding if things have evolved, if things have changed. Do you still picture yourself here? Do you know people here? What type of floor plans are you most interested in? Where is the current wait for things like that? Because what can happen is, if you haven't then put those steps in motion and really are active in your plan, then something can happen like that. And then all of a sudden somebody's calling me who had put all their eggs in the basket of coming into independent living in an 1,800 square foot beautiful apartment. But now I get a call and their care needs have actually progressed. Something happened and they're not going to qualify. And now we're starting all the way back to square one with, what does this look like now? Like where are your options at this point? So it is a matter of creating a plan, getting on a list, but also being active through that process, putting it into play, putting it into motion, not thinking that because you have your name on a wait list that you've given yourself that security. It's a great step, but it's not all that's needed.
I think I saw a question earlier that Barbara could answer. It was talking about how often should you update a care plan? And to Lacy's point, you put a plan in place, but as things change over that year, 2, 3 years, Barbara, where do you see that going?
I think one thing, first of all, I wanted to let everyone know, because y'all are all throughout North Carolina, care managers are available through a website called ALCA. It's agingcarelifeassociation.org, ALCA.org. We can put that in the chat. You can go on there, put your zip code in. So even if you're dealing with a loved one in California or wherever, you can go in and find a local care manager and read their bio and decide if that's a good fit for you. If you have a care manager involved, we can prevent 90% of all these conversations we're having, because we know that you're on a wait list at a CCRC, but we're monitoring you and we're helping you say, ooh, that might not be such a good plan anymore because you're now already to assisted level needs. The other piece is we're in these communities every day providing care management. So I serve an area, and I go into all these communities every day and follow my clients and see them for not just when they get there, but then all the way along, their care trajectory. So I'm able to provide families with insight on how things are changing and what things look like and how happy people are long term. And sometimes that changes. Staffing changes, administration changes, especially when you're looking at the skilled nursing facilities. So I think it's really important to engage a professional that can help your loved one for very low cost for what we are able to do just by a visit once every 6 months, we can help people keep on track. We have a program called Solo Senior, which was developed specifically. I know someone mentioned in the chat, what do you do if you don't have children? We then get brought in. Typically, most of our referrals come from financial advisors and attorneys here in the Charlotte area, where we walk alongside these folks, even though they don't need care. They're 66 years old, they're healthy, but they don't have a backup. We can be their healthcare power of attorney, in which we don't need to be activated until they need it. And then we just touch base with them twice a year to get an update on their meds, their doctors, their recent surgeries, their changes in wishes. And we just work with them through the duration. And then eventually, when they need more care, we may jump into more of a care management role. But that's a program that we've specifically developed through our company. Other care managers do that as well. And the second piece that we do is provide guardianship. So if there is someone that is deemed incompetent through the courts, we can be appointed a guardian. So we become guardian of person. We can help make all their decisions. We then work with the guardian of their estate to look at their financial plan, and we can help look at placement options, home care options, what the best way to take care of them at home. So care managers, not just our company, but care managers in general, we are the wave of the future of healthcare for seniors as far as the big holistic approach. And
I would agree. I'm so excited to find out about you all. Because that addresses really the elephant in the room that we're getting in the chat as well, which is these stubborn parents that won't build their caregiving plan. They don't want to talk about it. They don't want to move ever. It's just like my parents were, right, at the time. Where can you all come in, Barbara, and really provide family coaching to at least get people talking about it?
Right. I mean, I've got 25 years experience in nursing and healthcare and senior care. I go in and I don't tiptoe. I say, this is what this is going to look like. And, we can be all kumbaya and this is going to be so wonderful. But let me tell you the things that could happen if we're not prepared. And this takes the daughter out of it. The daughter gets to be the daughter and love on mom and be, sweet.
I would have loved that.
And whatever she wants to be. And I'm the bad guy. They can hate me. I guarantee after 6 months or a relationship, I become their best friend because they realize that my interests are only for them, and to be open and honest and help them, live their best life, but also not helping them get out of that denial to say, that's all great and dandy, but look what you're doing to your daughter by not making this plan. Is this fair to your spouse that you're not willing to have this conversation? Really kind of putting it back on them. You claim you want to be independent and you want to be live your best life and healthy, but you're not doing your part in this. And so that's why folks bring us in, is to have those tough conversations. And I have no problem, and most people that do what we do have no problem being that person, because we know that needs to happen. And the tough conversations are difficult. I take keys away. I help disable cars.
Oh my gosh, you do all the tough stuff, Barbara.
I've done all that. I've taken cards away. We've been the bad guy many times. And sometimes that just needs to happen because we want to keep families together. I mean, we are in the business of keeping everyone happy and trying to keep everyone safe, and so it's okay to come in and ruffle a little feathers if we need
and so
to.
you're going to be good then at the money keys as well, because I think for the CPAs out there like me, in fact, you might see it even earlier than I do with my clients, but mistakes in judgment, mistakes being able to handle the collection of data needed to prepare a tax return, stay on top of things that you're asking for. You're going to see your clients failing. And then, to call in a family member, because we have lists of trusted people we can call when our clients are failing, just people they've given us that are family members. We could introduce a caregiving team member, maybe to talk to them. And, dad's not able to do this anymore, and we're seeing mistakes that are really going to cost, Is that fair?
Right. I mean, and that's care managers, we assess cognition. So there's different tests that can be done at homes, things like mini mentals or BCAT tests that we can help families understand their loved one's ability to make decisions, their insight, their awareness of safety. We can kind of put that together with some data, and we can follow that trend. When we're checking in every 6 months, we can do that test and keep an eye on that. We also have those conversations like, who are your friends? We're trying to figure out. I recently had someone who made a friend on the internet. Well, this was a scam, and she fell victim to $30,000 in fraud because she paid tariffs on some jewels that were coming from Korea, because her friend was going to send this to her. Just crazy things out there. We have those conversations about their spending plans, about driving, any of those really tough subjects. Care managers are very comfortable getting into the weeds on that. If we need to get them to a neurologist and have a medical exam done that says they cannot drive, you can make a call to the DMV anonymously and report them if you have concerns.
Wow.
We've given families really creative ways to, the garage door is broken and we can't get the garage door company out soon enough. I mean, it depends on the level of cognition on
Yeah.
how we can have those conversations, but oftentimes it's just walking alongside the loved one who is doing that and giving them the support they need to know, hey, you're doing the right thing. I know this is hard. I know this is tough, but you are doing the right thing because you love your mom and you want her to be safe. To answer the question in the chat, care management services are typically only covered two ways. One, by FSAs for families. So if you have an employer that offers an FSA, oftentimes we can get our services covered under your FSA, which doesn't cover it, but at least it covers a pre-tax benefit. And then long-term care insurance covers care management typically.
Yeah, but Medicare doesn't pick up those costs, correct?
No.
Yeah.
And I think
to Barbara's point, I think we see this all the time too, and that is that I can say the same thing that son or daughter has been saying to mom and dad about the need to make this change, and coming from me, they'll accept it more readily than they will from their own children. So yeah, having that third party, I think sometimes is really important. And Lacy, I'm sure you play this role when you're dealing with families as well. That third party person that can have a conversation with your loved one that you may not be able to have as effectively. So.
Okay. Well, we're almost out of time. I can't even believe it. We've got 4 minutes. So I see Jermaine getting ready to do her thing. So I'm not sure we're going to have time for live questions, but certainly we're going to try to make sure we answer all the questions in the chat. And I mean, Jermaine, do we have time for one question if somebody wanted to ask?
I would do one question and then we do need to come to an end. Okay. Go do one question.
Does anybody have a question they want to try to ask? You could just unmute yourself, I think. Okay.
Well, one thing we can do is, I mean, I think this is such a well-received topic and it's something that we all have a lot of questions on. We're in the process, in fact, Ed's on the call right now. He's part of our planning committee. We're in the process of doing our whole schedule for 2025. So, maybe we can schedule you in 2025 and we can have a part 2 to this. Because everyone is interested in this topic, and it's an ever-evolving thing. Because you've brought up programs some of us were not familiar with, and I will say this because this is an area that I spend a lot of time into. So all these ladies are from Charlotte. We have these all over the state of North Carolina. So in the 3 counties that I'm in Western North Carolina, I have viewed these facilities and these services and priced. Yes, it does cost over $20,000 a month to get 24/7 care. So that is true. So yes, we'd love to have you all back. And I want to thank everybody for being on the program today. I want to tell you about our next 2 programs. If you want to save the dates on your calendar. So Thursday, December 5th, we're going to have Paula McMillan, who's a frequent speaker. She's going to come back and talk about a financial roadmap for life's journey going through today, tomorrow, and the future. And then we start the new year. And we always start the new year with a panel of our CPA financial planners. That's going to be January 28th from 12 to 1. Most of our programs are on Tuesdays at the end of the month. When we get to the end of the year, we have to do Thursdays. But on January 28th, we're going to start the year with one of the best planning ideas for 2025, and we get a panel of our CPA financial planners. So thank you all for being on this program today, and I hope you learned some things. And Jenny, we want you to get your gang to come back. And you can
Already
do some.
getting requests, aren't we?
Yeah. You're getting the request, and you and I have talked about you have other topics because you
do.
Nationally on a regular basis.
I do presentations for my whole company, which is 200 employees, and we pull them together every month. So I have a lot of great ideas.
But we have thousands of CPAs, and so we'd love to have you come back and join us because we only offer objective information. We don't ever do a program that is geared a certain way or product sales or anything like that. It's to provide solid, objective information.
I love that.
Community. Okay. Well, thank you, ladies, and thank you, everybody, for being on this call today. If you've got ideas for 2025, you can email me or email Mackenzie, and let us know soon because we're about to book our calendar for the year. So thank you.
Thanks, everybody. We had fun.
Yes.
Thank y'all so much.
you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.